Man, we got a jam-packed, frankly, hockey show for you today. That is the Hockey Insider, Frank Seravalli. I am John Buccigross. We're going to talk McKenna. We're going to talk Panarin. Frank's trade target board is out. We're going to spend some time on that as what is next, as we have a trade freeze right now in the NHL. And the Hall of Famer, Ken Holland, the man who landed Artemi Panarin, is our special guest. So a great show today, Frank. Great to see you. And it's February the 5th, 2026. 8 games tonight. And then no NHL hockey for almost 3 weeks. The Kings are in Vegas tonight. That's where we'll talk with Kenny Holland coming up in a bit. He is our guest. And again, Frank is cranking out the trade board on today's show. No trade for 17 days, Frank, so you can shower alone again. You don't have to bring the phone in.
Yeah, that's how you know you've reached some weird places in your life. It's like that old line from, do you remember Eagles coach Dick Vermeil?
Yes, of course.
He said he knew it was time to move on as Eagles coach when he found himself eating a hoagie while on the John. He said probably need a new line of work or to take a break. So when you are in the shower checking your phone, like you probably have a sickness.
It's part of the deal. Part of the deal. Happy birthday, Simon Edvinson. He's 23. Jan Funky Cold Herdina is 50. Richard Matvichuk, 53 years old. He won a cup with the Stars, of course, in 1999. Some Franks and Beans before we hit the rundown, a jam-packed rundown. Coach John Cooper on Braden Point's availability for the Olympics. That decision being made today, so I can't answer that. So this is a big day for Braden Point. Bite on that, Frank.
My hunch is that Braden Point's going. He's been skating for a bit here, trying to loosen this up and feel good about the knee. It's up to him to make the call. Team Canada's left it to him. So going to be agonizing either way. Are you close to 100% or do you believe you will be in about a week's time? That's the question.
Yeah, do they prefer he played tonight to prove it to them like Marchand did play last night for the Panthers?
I don't know if they need him to play, but I think they definitely need some hard skating and evidence. And the fact that John Cooper is there is really helpful.
Blue Jackets win again, 7th straight win. They enter the break 11-1 in their last 12. They don't want a break for sure with Rick Bowness and the way they're going, but maybe they'll pick it right back up when they return. We mentioned the Panthers and Brad Marchand playing. He beat the Bruins again, 2-0. He had the game-deciding goal in the shootout. Panthers snap a 4-game losing streak, but still hurts giving the Bruins a point and not closing that out in regulation, Frank, as we talked about here. If you're behind, you need to win in regulation against opponents you're chasing.
Yeah, save the 3-point games for the Western Conference teams when you play them.
Yeah. Can't afford that. Sergei Bobrovsky, 450th win in net, 8th goalie to do it. He'll pass Curtis Joseph and Henrik Lundqvist by season's end, as Sergei Bobrovsky, the future Hall of Famer, once again just keeps adding to his impressive resume. Play a couple more years, he'll get to 500. And I want to we haven't talked about Devin Cooley on the show yet on Frankly Hockey, Frank. I want to talk about him. 36 saves last night, first career Apple as well. 16 starts this year, so not the primary guy, but .921 save percentage, best in the league. Undrafted dude from Los Gatos, California. He's never really been the guy wherever he's gone. Like, he's got the most interesting hockey DB page, NAHL, BCHL, goes to Denver for 3 years, ECHL, Florida Everblades. But again, he's never like the guy playing 50 games a year. But here he is, 28 years old, and he might forge himself an NHL career out of all this. He just kept showing up every year, and here he is in the league.
It's funny because we didn't plan this or talk about it, but the guys in Calgary, I do Calgary radio twice a week. They've been sick of me talking about Devin Cooley because it was one of the big storylines heading into the season after he didn't really finish last year the way that he wanted to. Do the Flames need a different backup? And I kept saying, Devin Cooley is a dog. He's the guy. Stick with him. Trust him. And I mean, not to pat myself on the back, my arm actually isn't long enough to reach, but I would say like, this is a guy that you said shows up. I mean, he's consistent. Like he's a bona fide full-time NHL goalie.
Yeah. And wherever he's gone, obviously the guy has self-belief. He has resiliency. And obviously he's been hardened by those bus rides in the ECHL and going all the way back. So good on him. I love those kinds of stories in professional sports. Vegas finally wins. They needed one, 5-2. I want to talk about Pavel Dorofeyev, Frank. Another goal for him. 35 goals last year. Will likely get at least 35 again this year. He's an RFA after this year, 2 years RFA and then UFA. I mean, at some point, he's going to get a pretty big ticket. Vegas can't sign everybody. At some point, you do reach a limit. And, they got some big numbers kicking in here. Dorofeyev's an interesting cat who, again, as an RFA for 2 years, I imagine they'll bridge him because they can't afford another $8, $9, $10 million guy.
Well, they're not going to be able to afford him, period. Like, this is going to be the end
Right.
of Dorofeyev in Vegas, because on arbitration alone, if he hits 30 goals again, back-to-back 30-goal seasons, like, he's blowing the case out of the water. So
Right.
this is likely the end of the road, and they're going to have to try and find or mine another replacement at an inexpensive price, because it's difficult to envision them trying to manage another big salary.
Yeah, 1.84 this year, and like you said, he's blown that out with back-to-back 35-goal seasons. The Dallas Stars finishing up the pre-Olympic break well with a 6-game win streak. Meanwhile, the Blues winless in 8 of their last 9. I imagine there might be some Blues on your trade board coming up.
Yeah, I think Doug Armstrong has probably been at his wit's end. I mean, it was 2 weeks ago that we had him, the clip of him saying that this season has been embarrassing and they're looking for some foundation. Well, I think he's decided that this group doesn't have the right foundation.
Avalanche 31-0 when leading after 2. They closed out again last night, and Matt Boldy, he had a hat trick in the first 12:58 of the game last night in Nashville. An assist on the overtime winner from Spurgeon. I was watching that last night. As soon as the Wild have never been this sexy, Frank. Quinn Hughes, 10th straight game with an assist. It must be so much fun to be a Wild fan, because once I saw that score, and I'm checking my phone on the ESPN app, because then you can just watch the game on ESPN Plus, and I'm watching that game. I'm going to watch the rest of that game in regulation and overtime, because it's the Wild. Like, they weren't always like that. And now for the Wild fan, every night, I bet they wake up, is there a game tonight? Is there a game tonight? And they can't wait to watch, almost like a football mentality, the once-a-week NFL mentality, when you can't wait for your team to play. There's that buildup. With the Wild, the buildup can be one day if they play back-to-back. You just want to see them play and what's going to happen.
I mean, they had well-earned the nickname Minnesota Mild forever.
Yeah.
Because they were competitive, but not really anything that gets you excited. And so now they're appointment television. That's the truth.
They are.
And it's not just on the back end with Hughes, it's up front with Kaprizov. They are going to be aggressive at this deadline. They were trying to make a couple things happen on Wednesday before the Olympic freeze. They're looking for that center. At what price point is going to be the interesting question, because I think they're in a couple different conversations, but they laid some groundwork and some seeds ahead of the March 6th trade deadline. They've got a lot of different options, but for now, Bill Guerin flying to Milan this evening, and will turn his attention to Team USA.
All right. To the Frankly Hockey Rundown, and we begin with Gavin McKenna, charged with felony aggravated assault, according to court records. The 18-year-old also facing misdemeanor charges. The team apparently had been at a downtown bar with family and friends, a pub. You can go in there and eat with family and friends, and allegedly assaulted an unidentified individual. Now, ABC 27 last night, Frank, they provided more details. Officers were a complaint filed by Patrolman Lucas Scher. They were called to Mount Nittany Medical Center. There was a man being treated for a broken jaw, missing tooth, and his jaw will be wired shut for about 2 weeks. The incident, police said, was caught on State College Borough street cameras, which allegedly showed McKenna throwing 2 punches, striking the 21-year-old man. Again, outside Doggy's pub. The incident happened at 8:45, so it's not like this is something that happened at 1 o'clock in the morning or midnight. He was with other family members. He was released on $20,000 unsecured bail. Arraignment is February the 11th. Penn State doesn't play college hockey this weekend, so they don't have to do anything in terms of any kind of suspension or whatever. How they're going to handle it as a university and a hockey team, more so a university at this point. Again, don't forget, obviously a Canadian citizen on a special work visa, so there's these other factors as well. But so this is what we know as of now, and again, February 11th. is the arraignment. So perhaps we'll know more by then. But again, there's been stories out there what may have allegedly happened. Somebody said something to his mom. That person got kicked out. They got back out on the street when they were leaving and the kid was still there. And then this happened. So again, a lot of allegedly going on. But for now, we just want to focus on, what this means for Gavin McKenna and his draft status as being the likely, before this happened anyway, the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, so let's tackle some of the here and now ramifications or potential ramifications of this with pretty serious charges that he's facing. I mean, felony 1 is no joke. And so in the meantime, you mentioned Penn State doesn't play again until February 13th in Michigan. So they've got some time to sort this out, but there is precedent because there have been other players, football players, for instance, in university that at Penn State that have been charged with felonies. The precedent has been to be suspended. So that is something that Gavin McKenna is facing. You mentioned the idea that he is a Canadian citizen. If this sticks, and that's a big if because there's a court process and due process that needs to take place, but it can damage your ability to re-enter the United States, which for any hockey player is a pretty significant one. And then there's this world of NIL that these college players have been living in. Does the alleged actions of Gavin McKenna, does that violate any of the morals clauses that exist in those NIL deals? So just sort of more minor things compared to what Gavin McKenna is facing in the bigger picture of how does this impact his draft status?
Right. And like you said, maybe if there's been some other on ice issues with him at Penn State. Again, these are things you have your teammates back. A lot of teammates do. You hit my guy, I hit you guy. So you can understand those kinds of things, but they are starting to kind of, pile up a bit here, Frank.
Well, and that's what teams have noticed, right? And so let's walk through a couple of these things. This is going back to last year when he's playing in Medicine Hat in the WHL. He was suspended for 3 games for this incident where he slashed a player and then cross-checked him in the back of the head. That's the Edmonton Oil Kings that he's facing. So then there was also playing for Team Canada at the World Juniors this year. He was ejected from the final game against Czechia for abuse of officials and given a game misconduct. Now, carrying over to Penn State before their outdoor game against Michigan State on the day of this alleged incident, he was given a misconduct in each of his 2 of his final 3 games before that. The next one leads to an automatic suspension. So what I've talked to teams about and what they've relayed is that there has been a demonstrated Gavin McKenna has lost his cool at times and has temporarily been unable to reel it in. And so you might say, well, hey, in the circumstances or totality of this case, I like that he was defending a family member, if that's what the story ends up being, which I think a lot of people can relate to. But at the same time, you cannot assault someone for something that's said. And what teams have mentioned is Gavin McKenna, if that is the true story, is going to face or hear a lot worse than that over the course of a long NHL career. So perspective is key. This has undoubtedly raised questions for Gavin McKenna and his draft status and position that he does not want to answer, in the sense that teams are facing and staring down what could be $100 million decision. You better get it right. Your future as an NHL GM or running an organization depends on nailing this pick. And if this becomes a theme, or if this becomes something to worry about, it's something that other players or other prospects don't necessarily have. So that part has raised the other, end of this conversation, which is not just facing a felony and other charges, but facing a reputation of a guy that loses his cool in heated moments.
Right. And we saw a lot of reaction, last night on X, on people saying, good, I feel better about him now. And I like him even more now that he, again, allegedly a name was said at his mother, and then he defended his mom. But like you said, what does the law say? Are you still allowed to punch somebody and break their jaw? And that's all that really matters at this point, is what happens in the legal process, and what happens at the hearing next week. And was this person trying to goad into getting hit so he could get a check and get lawyered up, right? Because that's the other part of this. Will he lawyer up and try to? Now there is security cameras that can show a couple of these things, and maybe a couple of times that this person did really goad and goad and goad. What does the judge think about that? So at that point, that's all that matters, is what the judge thinks about the situation, no matter what he said to him or his family member or how much he goaded him. Does he have the right to hit him? And that's what a judge is going to eventually decide on.
Just living in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I can tell you that it doesn't really matter what's said to you, as long as, you know, your safety was presumed. Like, you don't have the ability to haul off and hit someone. That said, I'm not an attorney, and also important perspective to keep in mind, he's a kid, and kids make mistakes. And that's life. So how will he learn from it? This will be an important, point of emphasis for him, I'm sure, in conversations with teams. But to think that there's this narrative that exists out there that his stock is rising in the draft, I mean, like, let's take a full time out here and consider where some of these opinions are emanating from, and check for biases. And remember that I'm not sharing this to demean Gavin McKenna's stock or status. I'm just passing along for you authentic conversations that I've had with NHL decision makers who are saying, A, there's a pattern, and B, there's a really big decision. There's $100 million decision. Can't have question marks lingering. And so there's a lot of time between now and June, but just want to sit back in this moment in time where everyone's talking about it to remind everyone of what's at stake.
So I'm sure, again, the security cameras will be looked at. The interviews will be taking place in these next couple of days in terms of witnesses. What did they hear? What was said? And maybe it did reach a point where he felt he was in danger, and he did have to act in self-defense to his mother and to himself, that he really felt threatened by this belligerent person who kept giving it to him. And so that's what we'll find out here in the next few days and next week. Well, the big news yesterday after we logged off, Frank, the Kings land Artemi Panarin in exchange for a conditional third-round pick and prospect Liam Greentree. Then another shocker was the extension, 2 years, $22 million. That was the bigger shocker to me. You're always a little shocked when he ends up at one team. You don't know for sure when there's multiple teams involved, but kind of take us through yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, look, it was wild to see this. We knew it was coming to a conclusion, but not shocked that the return isn't big, because that's the one sort of threat that we had mentioned repeatedly, is if the player who has full control says, I'm only going to one team, your options with the New York Rangers are sit back and wait until March 6th to see if you can squeeze for a better deal, or swallow hard and make the deal. And that's obviously what Chris Drury and the Rangers decided here. But you're right. To me, the more interesting part, and how Artemi Panarin demonstrated how much he wants to be in LA, is a very reasonable contract that you can say 34-year-old Artemi Panarin, north of a point per game for every season in New York. You know, in LA that you're going to be getting good value for 2 years. You know that he's going to be able to keep up and play extraordinarily well and produce. So the Kings essentially give up what some teams viewed, again, not my opinion, some teams viewed as a declining prospect in Liam Greentree, and a mid-round pick, because that's all that's guaranteed. The fourth that you see here as part of the trade only transfers if the Kings win 2 playoff rounds and get to the conference final. That the Kings were able to not just jump the line and sign Panarin to a very reasonable extension, but also get him for this playoff run. That's really good business, which is why I'm really excited as you see this great tweet here from the Kings. Their shopping list has now concluded by adding bread. That Ken Holland, this is some great work from Ken Holland overall to be able to pull something like this off.
Yeah, again, he's going to be our guest here in a couple of minutes, and that's why they hired Ken, to try to get some of these stars and try to get these big ticket guys. A team that's been very good out there in the Western Conference, making the playoffs, giving Edmonton some good fights, but in the end, just not having enough in their arsenal to get it done. So this certainly helps. Very exciting for Kings fans to see him out there. And like you said, as we shift to the Ranger viewpoint, there's just no leverage. I don't know why any Ranger fan is surprised that they didn't get more. They want the Brock Nelson return, the Brendan Carlo return. They just didn't have any leverage here. Once he said it's LA or nothing, then you don't have anything. It's obviously a terrible situation to be in for a Ranger fan, and for even Chris Drury. It's like, man, how do we do this? It must be a tough conversation.
Well, here's the thing.
You're emasculated.
Some days you're the bug, some days you're the windshield. Like it works for and against you, in the sense that, remember how disappointed Chicago Blackhawk fans were and what they got for Patrick Kane a few years ago? Same exact scenario. Superstar player says, I'm only going to one team. The Rangers are the beneficiary. They don't give up a lot. I think it was a conditional second-round pick to get Patrick Kane. This time around, they're on the receiving end of a tough return for Artemi Panarin. You win some, you lose some. And had the Rangers played better this season, and had the Rangers been a playoff team, we're probably not having this conversation. So that happens. Again, that's life. But for New York, now it's going to be, with this file off of Chris Drury's desk, how quickly can they pivot to, over these next couple weeks before this freeze unlocks? What else will be the damage? Will Vincent Trocheck be following Artemi Panarin out the door? Will someone like Braden Schneider be of interest to teams, and will they move on from him? Like, there's a lot that still is to unfold over this next few week period of time, which is why I believe the Rangers ultimately said, hey, it's not going to get any better for us. Let's just make the deal, and now let's focus on what we can actually really recoup on.
Well, that's a perfect segue right into your trade targets. And let's take a look at your latest trade target list, because right at the very top there, we see a New York Ranger in Vincent Trocheck. Now, again, that return should be better, because there'll be multiple teams who would love to add a player like him.
Yeah, and he's a very hot commodity because, well, just watch him at the Olympics for Team USA. He's incredibly versatile. He plays big minutes, plays above his size. Like, he plays meaner and bigger. And he can play anywhere in your lineup with that versatility, but then throw in the productivity, not far off from a point per game, 36 points in 42 games, and then add in the cost certainty of a very reasonable contract for the next few years that really lines up at a thin center market. This is the guy. And with all due respect to Nazem Kadri, who we'll talk about in a second, or perhaps even Elias Pettersson, Vincent Trocheck is a very known commodity. There's no questions like with Pettersson of what are we getting here. You know exactly what you're getting, and you know where to plug him in your lineup. And that is why the Rangers have the premier piece, as I view it, on this market.
Man, he just screams Detroit for me, Frank. Stevie Y has the capital. He has the stuff. He has the cap room. Like, isn't he? That's the guy for him, right?
I mean, there's a million places I could see him fitting.
We know how many teams need centers, but man, that's one that sticks out to me.
What about Minnesota and Trocheck? Like, how does that not make sense?
Yep.
I mean, speaking of the Team USA relationship, like, Bill Guerin's going to get to watch him very closely here for the next couple of weeks in Milan. But they're a team that needs a center and is looking for a center, and he fits their cap profile. That works. I mean, it's the Rangers and Boston don't make a ton of deals, but I could see Trocheck making sense in Boston. How many teams couldn't use a center? The LA Kings could use a center. There's a lot of teams that could use a center.
You're right. He could be just about a number 2 center on every team, and maybe in Minnesota's case, he might be the number 1 center there if he ended up there. So you're right. And again, that's why he'll get a good return, because there'll be multiple teams who want him. And then Blake Coleman's another very interesting one. We saw what happened when he and Barclay Good We back?
Yeah, you got me now? I don't know what happened there.
I got you now. I saw a froze situation. I don't know if I was on the whole time or not.
Yeah, I think you're still good. I got you on my Twitter feed here, so let's go. Sorry about that. That
Okay.
was very odd.
Very odd. Very odd. So,
Is Ken ready?
We are live. Okay. So I guess I was on the whole time, but you were frozen, so I wasn't sure if I was. We are live. Okay, we're back at it. So where were we before the frozen kicked in?
We were talking about Blake Coleman and just
Yes.
the impact that he had with Barclay Goodrow in Tampa.
Right. And so where do you want to go from here before we bring Kenny in?
I would say, look, there's a couple guys in this top five that with Dougie Hamilton and Andrew Mangiapane, teams that are waiting to make moves. Like we've talked about the Devils need to free up cap space. Andrew Mangiapane, same thing with the Oilers. Like they kind of need to move those guys out to go chase some other stuff. Although the Devils did clear up some space in Palat being moved on to the Islanders. And then you're looking at, well, how aggressive would a team like the Devils even want to be at this point, given where they sit in the standings, 15th heading into last night's action just in the East. And as we flip to numbers 6 through 10 on our trade target, look, there's some really interesting vets here. Ryan O'Reilly, as we just talked about the center market and how teams are craving that experience that he brings as a Conn Smythe Trophy winner. Yes, Barry Kotkaniemi is a younger, less productive, different price point center. Connor Garland has an extension in Vancouver that didn't kick in yet. Steven Stamkos has been on an absolute tear in Nashville, but he's a winger at this point in time. And then there's Braden Shen from the St. Louis Blues, who really provides a bit of a different element than some of the other guys on this board with the grit that he plays with, as well as the productivity as that sort of perfect middle six addition as a center.
And obviously you can't make a trade, but are teams allowed to even discuss trades during this break?
Yes. That's what's going to be so interesting is that, look, teams are prohibited from actually executing the trade, but there's nothing that would stop them from actually pulling getting everything in line so that when the freeze is lifted, that they could then make the trade. But it's one of those situations where everyone's going to be making calls. Everyone's going to be scouting prospects throughout the freeze, and they're going to be ready to hit the ground running, knowing that there's a very limited window of time between now and March 6th, once the freeze lifts on Monday morning after the gold medal game.
That's right. That is, as we wait to talk with Kenny Holland, who's logging in for us. That's, again, March 6th. That's a Friday. That's the deadline. And the 25th, is that when they can resume at noon? Is that what it is?
23rd at 23rd. Midnight. So 12:01 a.m. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So if they're up late, maybe you think we'll see a bevy of announcements right after midnight, or you think they'll wait till Tuesday?
Yeah, okay. There's no need to.
All right. So that's, again, it's I imagine for Guerin and Armstrong trying to do two things at once over there is going to be a bit of a challenge to be on top of things. Of course, once you have your team there and your coaches are in place, I guess they are free to spend some time on their own team as well.
Well, there's going to be at least 8 NHL GMs there already, like a quarter of the league as assistants, that they could actually conduct some business between themselves if they really wanted to do so over a pint.
All right. Well, let's bring in Kenny Holland now, the GM of the Los Angeles Kings, who got it done yesterday for LA as they're able to trade for and then sign Artemi Panarin to an extension. Kenny, great to see you. The Hall of Famer is with us. And I'm curious, Kenny, when you woke up yesterday morning, did you think, you've been in this business a long time, do you ever give up? Do you raise the white flag? You think it's not going to happen, and then something changed? What happened when you woke up yesterday morning?
I talked to the night before. I talked to Chris Drury, and we had some conversations about a potential deal. Weren't close. We both agreed that he was on the East Coast, I was on the West Coast at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern, that we would connect, and it gave us 5 hours to the deadline to see if we could find a solution. Went back and forth over the course of a few hours, and I would say within an hour, 45 minutes to go, it looked like we weren't going to find a solution. And then and all of a sudden things started to come together the last half an hour. Obviously, we had to get Panarin to sign off because he had the no move, and
Mm-hmm.
it was in the last hour that all came together.
Ken, when you work through this process and you're going back and forth trying to figure out, is this going to happen? Is it not? To land the player, but also to get him on an extension that fits for what you guys are trying to accomplish in LA. How important was the term of this deal to manage that process?
Well, it was huge. It's got to work for everybody. Obviously, it's got to work for Chris Drury, for the player Panarin, and for the LA Kings. So we liked the term. Obviously, Panarin liked the term. We're anxious to get him in, and hopefully we have a deal beyond that. It's difficult to get. 9 consecutive seasons, he's had more than a point a game. These kind of players are really difficult to get a hold of, and this was a great opportunity for our team. He's 34 years of age, so he's not old. He's got incredible hockey sense. He's elusive. He makes people better, and you look at some of the contributions of players in their 35 to 40-year-old years around the league. So there's no reason why he can't be very a point producer here for a number of years going forward because of his hockey sense. He's a good skater and very elusive.
You guys are 3 points out of the division, 3 points out of a wild card. As you look at the rest of the way and the sprint coming back, you'll have 27 games left. What more needs to be done here to get you guys fortified to make a run?
Well, first off, John, is obviously we got to score a few more goals. We're near the bottom of the league in goal scoring. That was a big reason why we did the deal, not only for this year, but also for the next couple of years. We've been good defensively. We had a tough night, a big loss last night against divisional loss against Seattle. So we got to bounce back. We're in Vegas here tonight. We have lots of divisional games. I think in our last 15 to 20, we have 15 at home and 11 on the road coming out of the break. So we got lots of games against teams that we got to try to get ahead of. So we got to play good defensive hockey. Power play scored 2 goals last night. We need that to come alive, and like I said, score a few more goals and get some offense by committee.
Ken, when is Artemi Panarin expected to join your team?
He's going to join us on the 18th, the first day of practice during the Olympic break. I believe that's a Wednesday, and then we play the following Wednesday. So it'll give the coaching staff and Artemi a good week to get acclimated to our team, to the area, and also for the coaching staff to kind of figure out who his line mate should be and where he fits best. And obviously, I'll work on the power play. He's going to go on the power play as well. So it gives us a good week to get him ready.
And Kenny, as you look at the league, and especially, this kind of dawned on me last night thinking about a question to ask you is, from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, is it different? Is your philosophy different on building a team because how the game has changed? Whether it be a certain aspect of the game that's changed, and now you need certain kinds of players. Has that changed all that much in your career as a general manager trying to construct rosters?
No, I think it's a lot of the same. The ingredients. I just think they're harder to get. Because the league has expanded to 32 teams. The scouting departments, the amateur scouting departments for every team are bigger. I can remember in the 80s when I started, there was teams that didn't have full-time European scouts. The Detroit Red Wings were one of the few teams that had a full-time European scout. Well, now every team probably has 3 or 4 full-time European scouts, one in almost every country. So, I think you want to be fast. You want to have hockey sense. You want to have skill. You want to be mobile on the back end. You want to be able to move the puck up. You got to know how to defend when you don't have the puck. And the last team that's standing at the end of the year that wins the Stanley Cup does it better than everybody else. But I think we're all pieced together, build the same type of team. And like I said, it's just that was why in this situation for us with Artemi Panarin, to be able to get a player that we think can be a point a game player going forward for the next couple of years, and add them to our team this year was very, very important because again, these players are very difficult to get.
So with this Panarin trade, which makes perfect sense for the reasons that you outlined, how will that dictate what comes next for you at this deadline? How aggressive will you be in terms of trying to add, given where you are in the standings, knowing that, well, you didn't have to give up a ton of future assets to get Panarin, but will you try and go grab a center or grab something else? What's in line for the Kings?
Well, I'm obviously going to work the phones, and if I can, we've obviously made a decision yesterday to, I guess we're pushing some chips in. But, now it's not only for this year. It's not like he's a rental. We've obviously signed him up for 2 more years beyond this year. So it was a move made yesterday for today, this season, and 2 more. But obviously, when you make the move that we did yesterday, our goal is to try to get into the playoffs. And I think once you can get into the playoffs, anything can happen. So I'm going to work the phones. I think it'll be quiet for now. As you said just before I got on, a quarter of the general managers are over in Italy for the Olympics. They're going to be focused on that. I think my guess is probably week 10 days from now when you get into the last week of the Olympics. And we're 4, 5, 6 days away from the trade deadline, opening up. I'm sure that the phones will start to work, and I'll be on the phones seeing if there's something out there that can make us a little bit better with the move that we did yesterday. On top of that, I guess I'm going to go watch some college games and going to try to watch our American League team just so I got a good feel for our organization and looking at some players that we own in college and some college free agents.
So you GMs are allowed to kind of formulate deals during this break, and then you could announce them a minute when the deadline is over?
Yeah, you can talk, John. Yeah, we can talk, but obviously you can't announce anything or do anything until. That's why I don't think it's you don't want to. You're not going to agree something today and try to sit on it for 3 weeks.
Right.
So the reality is you're going to get down to a few days in advance of the end of the Olympic tournament, and then have some conversations and. Like I said, this deal with LA and the New York Rangers, I mean, it started probably 10 days ago when the first time Panarin was a healthy scratch. The next day, Chris Drury called me and asked me if we had interest. And we had some little conversation. Then on Sunday, Chris called me and told me that he wanted this to happen before the Olympic break and that there was a time crunch. And obviously we got it done. So, it doesn't take 2-3 weeks to get a deal done. You can do a deal sometimes in one call and in 15 minutes.
Yep.
Sometimes you need a few days. That's why I say I think a few days in advance of the when the roster freeze, when the trade freeze goes down, there'll be the phone lines will start.
Ken, last one for me. Your first year in LA as general manager, and also Anze Kopitar's last year. What's it been like to spend time around him and to see this sort of farewell tour? It's amazing the respect that he has around the league for his body of work and his career.
Well, he's first off, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer in my opinion, and he's a first ballot Hall of Fame person. A great leader, great person, respects the game. As you said, as we go around the league, so well respected by his opponents. Many teams have waited after the game to kind of acknowledge his career. Obviously, would love to be able to in his last year get our team into the playoffs. So he has one last shot at a playoff run. But 200-foot player, plays the game the right way. Respected in the locker room, and I think the way he plays the game, 200 feet and attention to team defense is part of the reason why the LA Kings are so good defensively and won the Stanley Cups in 2012 and 2014. He sets the tone and he plays it the right way. He practices the right way. He respects the game, and everybody else follows his lead.
Better to live in Edmonton or Los Angeles during February?
It's pretty nice in LA these days, John. It's about 80 degrees. We're over in Vegas today. We're going back to a special place to be. LA's a special city, as everybody knows.
It is. Well, thank you for being a Frankly Hockey field filler today, Kenny. We appreciate your time talking about the big trade, and we'll see you down the road.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
The Hall of Famer, Kenny Holland, on Frankly Hockey. That's some good detail about that Panarin trade when they first talked. And obviously, as you mentioned in our last few shows, Frank, that Chris Drury wanted to get this done before the Olympic break. And Kenny just obviously corroborated that. And there you go.
I mean, he said 5 hours before the deal was done that he wasn't sure, didn't think it was going to happen. That's why the last 24 hours. And if you remember yesterday, I mentioned I feel very uncomfortable really drawing a line and saying, here are the teams that are in and out, because some were being leveraged against each other. There was some gamesmanship. One GM called it brinksmanship. And then in the end, when push came to shove and all these offers are laid out on a table for Artemi Panarin of, hey, you can get 4 times 11.75 here or 4 times 15 here. In the end, it really became, where do you want to play? You're going to like, he's already a very wealthy individual as it is. Where do you want to make your home for the next chunk of time? And when
that
he chose
matters.
LA, that's like the rest of it became secondary. So they get a deal done in LA. The Rangers probably don't love every bit of it. They're excited about Liam Greentree. But other than that, Panarin gets to go to a place that he wanted and leaves maybe 30 million bucks on the table. Like, it's an incredible story.
Right. And like Kenny said, who knows, maybe he has a great year next year and then they extend 2 more years after that, right? He's confident in himself. Like you said, he has the bank, he has the bag already. I'll still make close to that anyway. Yeah, I still expect, it's not guaranteed that things can happen, but he's pretty much confident I'll be in the neighborhood. And like you said, I'm where I want to live.
Yeah. Well, that matters. Think about the markets that he's chosen to play in. I mean, well, he's, started in Chicago, big market, went to Columbus, didn't stay very long, goes to the Rangers, and now he's in LA. So there's a theme. And another thing to point out, and I'd love to have this discourse with fans, like, feel free to tweet at me. I think Artemi Panarin is a top 5 NHL salary cap era free agent signing. Tell me how many players relative to cap have been more productive than him. This is a 100-point player. These guys don't transact all that often, as Ken Holland mentioned.
Right. Now, that's why we say you got to get them. And again, that's why the Kings hired Kenny, to get some big fish. You win in this league with stars, and you need more. Like, they need more. They need a couple more. And that's what he's going to try to do and get before this trade deadline and over the summer as well. So good guess, good stuff. And let's move on now to Ask the Insider. Frank Seravalli, can Charlie McAvoy catch a break? This poor guy's like a crash test dummy this year. Like, every collision, puck is finding him.
I'm sure he was hoping transitioning calendar to 2026, that 2025 and the ugly run in 4 Nations that ended his season. Hey, let's park that. Let's get healthy. Let's get to Milan, put on the USA sweater again. This guy was a warrior. Like, he was in really bad shape heading into that gold medal game against Canada and 4 Nations. Like, what he went through physically with his family, the emotional toll of that. I mean, look at this hit last night in Florida. Like, you're thinking, just get to the Olympics unscathed, and he's rocked last night in Florida.
Yeah, of course, he still has the fish bowl on because he took that puck and he couldn't eat for a couple of weeks and he lost 20 pounds. And then this happens last night, and thankfully he did come back, and at least he got his knee out of the way too. It was almost a combo knee-head combination, but he just got his left leg, just got it out of the way before the knee-on-knee contact. Watch his left leg right there. He just collapses it and then gets it right up by the jaw, and the Bruins weren't happy. And in fact, the Panthers got a power play out of that, as it all turned out. And so let's hopefully Charlie can go over to Milan, and because I love the soundbite during 4 Nations when it was Brady Tkachuk. I'm following you, Charles. I'm following you. Like, McAvoy has that aura about him. He's got that charisma as a player. When he rocked Connor McDavid in Montreal with that check, that was like, whoa. That was after the Tkachuk fights. That was the moment.
Yeah,
this is real.
And look, I don't root for teams, but I hope he has a great Olympic experience because he's earned it.
It'd be nice to see him score a big goal. It would be. You're right. Not just play well, play the normal Charlie McAvoy, great defender, hockey, but also just to score a big one and get his moment. You're right. Boy, does he deserve that kind of exhale and that kind of moment. That would be. I can imagine how emotional he would be if they put a gold medal around his neck after all he's been through. Like you said, on the ice, off the ice, his family, his new young family. It's been a pretty busy couple years for Charlie McAvoy for sure. Hashtag hockey. Welcome to the dojo, Schefty. This was fun part of the story yesterday. That of all people, Adam Schefter and the response to people when they saw it was Adam with Emily breaking the trade.
So I mean, I had to do a double take, right? I mean, I'm making calls, texting, trying to get as much information, knowing that this 3 p.m. deadline is hitting. And trying to figure out, okay, where did he land? I'm messaging teams. Did you get Panarin? No. Did you get Panarin? I'm literally sitting there with a pen and paper, crossing them off my list. And then exactly 3 on the dot, Adam Schefter comes over and hits us all in the head with a 2x4. And I had to actually like click on the account and be like, is this real? Like, is this the verified? Like, is this the real Adam Schefter?
Right.
And
the one letter off, not really him deal. Yeah.
Oof. So, yeah, we all took one between the eyes yesterday. The king of NFL scoops dabbling in hockey. I hope that's a one-time thing. But as I said, welcome to the dojo, Schefty, and we'd be happy to have you. There's room for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to run into him and ask him, all right, take me behind the scenes, Adam, here. But that's funny. He likes to do stuff like that every now and then. He'll dabble in some NBA stuff, and it's kind of funny. I'm sure it's just amusement and entertainment for him at this point. But it was a really interesting sidebar of yesterday's crazy day with Artemi Panarin.
And a reminder, and I say this all the time, you never, ever know where information comes from. It comes from the strangest places sometimes that you're running something down.
No doubt. No doubt. It is. You never know. I'm sure. What's your strangest one that you can kind of tell us? Like, I know you can't give away everything, but like, what was one like you?
Oh, I get stuff all the time. That's like a player will.
I'm sure you overhear something and then you can corroborate it.
Yeah, it's not so much overhear, but people don't realize the power of like the smallest thread of information. Like, hey, I heard, I'm sitting around in the locker room and I heard this guy say it's down to 3 teams. And you go like, oh, okay, like that's information that I can pull on that now. I can go make those calls. But the best are when it's like, hey, my wife just said that in the wives group chat, so-and-so has just been traded to X. And so it's not gospel. Like you're getting that
right
hand me down the line. As a journalist, you have
to
secondary
assist
that and check in, double check sources, do the whole thing. But yeah, that actually happens like way more than you think.
Yeah, the secondary assist, right? You're the defenseman behind the net, leads it for McDavid. He goes up the ice 200 feet, dangles, makes a pass. You get an assist. But it started 200 feet back there.
So-and-so is now getting their stuff off the plane because he has been traded. Like it could come from the third equipment assistant guy. Like you really have no idea.
The secondary assist, then your job is to go get the primary assist and then to score the goal when you press send. There it is, taking you inside the insider, frankly, hockey viewer with Frank Seravalli. All right, speculate to accumulate. Again, you're on another heater. You're reading the board. You're seeing the board well. You're noticing like that doesn't make sense. And your Carpe Diem seizing the moment. You have another that doesn't make sense selection today.
Yeah, and look at these two teams, how well or poorly they've been playing of late. And the Devils, they're limping into this freeze. They traded for Nick Bjugstad, small sort of, hey, what are we doing here? Why is it taking so long to make something happen kind of trade is how I viewed it. The Islanders have been good. They've been rolling. They've been productive. Matthew Schaefer has been electric again. These two teams could not be going in more opposite directions, and yet this is a coin flip. It doesn't make any sense to me. So given that it's a coin flip, like, of course I'm along for the ride. Like, why wouldn't you be? So it wouldn't be a huge needle mover in terms of units. Last night was pretty decent at plus 1.5, but this one, Yeah, like I'll wager 1.1 to make 1 on the Islanders. Like, yeah, that makes sense to me.
All right. Something to root for as I watch tonight. I always root for my boy Frank. Now the last word, and Paul Maurice. His Florida Panther experience has been very interesting to me. I think when he got the job, it just worked out so well for him. He had kids going to school in the area. He's going from Winnipeg to South Florida in the winter. The best place to be in North America from November to April, weather-wise, is South Florida. You're guaranteed warmth all the time, even more so than Arizona and even Southern California. You're locked in. And so I just felt, Frank, that he was the man playing with house money from the get-go. And he has turned into this very chill kind of Zen master with how he views his team and hockey and life. He's just in a perfect spot. And I think both parties, the Panthers organization and him, are benefiting.
They are. And just take a listen to this because there's so much wisdom. It doesn't matter what level you play or coach at, what field or business you're like, listen to this.
I would say that in everything that's happened here over the last 4 years, there's something to be gleaned out of your adversity. There's an important opportunity. So you just want to stay aware of it and stay out of the emotional part and keep your eyes open for what is it we can take out of this that we get to keep that's going to make us better. Is it maybe not doesn't make us better in the next month? Maybe you just got to pay for it. Maybe you just got to go through it. But if you can keep your eyes open, there's something that you can use that'll make you a better hockey team. When you win two, you think you should win everyone. You start to lose your perspective on how hard it is to do what this team has done. But you also don't want to be pining for yesterday. You want to think about what it is that we're dealing with right now. How can we handle it? Adjustments that we can make to give ourselves a chance. Then we get to keep those. I mean, no team's going to sit with... I don't. We have more man games lost this year than our last 2 years combined, and we're at game 55. So it's significant. There's something in there. We'll find players. We'll find adaptations to our game that will add to it. Hopefully that leads to a win tomorrow night that starts something really strong for us here, because we still have lots of belief, not casual belief. We know how big this hill is. There's something in adversity in every situation that I think if you can accept it, you can learn from it.
Beautiful.
It's a big hill. Again, they are 8 points out of a wild card, 11 points out of third in the Atlantic. So we're kind of in a situation here where we could have a Tampa-Florida first-round matchup or a Carolina-Florida first-round matchup. That's probably the only way they're going to make the playoffs, Frank. I don't think they have enough time to get back in the top three of the Atlantic. Buffalo, Montreal, Detroit, they're playing too well. Like, all three aren't going to collapse. So I think it's going to be the best-case scenario for Florida with only 26 games to go, and they have Tampa tonight in Tampa. So if they lose this one, it might be lights out, literally, by the time they come back. But if they get in the wild card, we could have an absolute colossal first-round matchup in the East. If they get everybody back, and for some reason Barkov comes back, and boom, they somehow squeak in like they did when they won their first cup, barely got in, played record-setting Boston in the first round, and they beat them. And then they go on to win that first cup. So that's a juicy thing to think about, but he knows. But you're right. I just love how he said, you learn from everything, but sometimes you just have to go through things. You don't learn anything from it. It doesn't benefit. Everything happens for a reason. Everything happens, but sometimes things don't happen for a reason, and you just got to get through it. That's another part of life that I like. I like that lesson too.
I feel like it's like you could... Is he reading Ryan Holiday, or did he read him? The obstacle is the way. Like it feels like that's part of
stoicism. Yeah.
But I mean, just the idea that you win 2 Stanley Cups and you think you should, hey, it should always be like this. We should win every year. Or someone should just hand us another Stanley Cup. It's not, life's not like that. And I actually thought back immediately to Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins. First few years in the league, you make it to a cup final. You get back the next year, you win. It took a long time until 2016 rolled around again from 2009, and a lot of heartache, a few general managers, a lot of head coaches. It's not that easy. and the perspective is key.
Yeah, same with Brady and Belichick. People don't realize the huge gap in between, two of those Super Bowls. It was almost a decade, and so it's hard. But then he also throws in, we are injured a lot. We also know that. So, it's important to say that and to recognize that, because you don't want your confidence to be shot. There is a reason we're kind of in this hole. It's definitely injuries. We're good. We know we're good. That being said, we're in a hole and we got to get out of it, and we got to try to figure that out and try to make these adjustments he talked about. How can we put players in the right position? And it will be interesting to see what Bill Zito does if if they do win tonight, say, and now they're kind of, will he try to do something? Can he do anything? But I would think he's just going to go with his guys, hope they come back and run with this team this year. That's his plan, right?
I would assume, and I would think that at a certain point, you have to just throw your hands up and say, this year wasn't meant to be. I mean, think about their lineup the other night, missing 8 regulars from their Stanley Cup winning team and all 4 centers.
Yeah.
What team in the NHL can compete like that?
Right. And we've talked about it on the show last month. There's some nights you look at their roster like that's not going to get it done. That's not a playoff team because of the injuries.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I have a travel day tomorrow, so I won't be on the show tomorrow. So I just want to shout out college hockey this weekend. We have a couple really cool matchups: North Dakota, Duluth, Western Michigan, Miami. The Red Hawks, big weekend for them. They can move up as they're trying to play a good team with some points they can get. And then, of course, Michigan State, Michigan, Frank, home and home, 2 of the best. I think one of those 2 teams is a great chance to be your national champion this year. And they're going head-to-head Friday, Saturday in Ann Arbor and East Lansing. So looking forward to that this weekend in college hockey. And maybe Kenny Holland will be watching too. He sees some drafted Kings players. As he said, some of these players this will be a time for GMs, Frank, to check out them as they think about their trades. They want to get maybe their own opinion on a guy. Do I want to trade that guy? No, I like that guy.
100%.
And, because they normally lean on their scouts, right? They can't be 3 places at once.
No, this is not a time for vacation. It's hockey time.
That's right. All right. Great stuff. Really enjoyed it. A couple little technical snafu in the middle there. Frozen Frank. It was like the end of a 70s sitcom.
Sure, my third neck looked really good during that freeze.
I kept refreshing. Jared said, no, you're live. You're live. You're live. We'll do it live.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Jared. Sorry, Frank. Frankly Hockey, it's your one-stop shopping for all things hockey 5 days a week on Victory Plus, 9 o'clock Pacific, noon Eastern. See you next time.